I know what it means. Oh, hello, children. Pete the parrot was just asking me what the word migration means. You need to use a dictionary. Why don't you go off and use a dictionary and try and find out what the word migration means, and you can tell me at the end.
Okay.
Off you go then, while I speak to the children on my own.
Yay!
Children, have you ever found that sometimes in church, when you're listening to a sermon, or you're singing a hymn, or maybe during a Bible reading, sometimes there's some really difficult words. Sometimes you might not know what those words mean. Well, I thought over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we could look at some really difficult words in the Bible and what they mean. Today's word is really difficult. Are you ready for it? Justified. Whew. Justified. Sometimes we might even hear it, justified by grace. Now, what does that mean? Well, we're going to try and find out. So what does it mean to be justified? Well, let's start with this. What does God expect from us? How can we please God? Come over here and I'll show you. Imagine that this coat is like your life. To please God, God expects you to be perfectly clean. He expects you to be perfectly pure. That means that you've made no mistakes in your life, that you've never disobeyed God. There isn't a mark on you at all. That's what's pleasing to God, and that's what will get you into his heaven. But actually, that's not really what our lives are like at all, are they? Come with me and I'll show you what our lives are really like. You see, our lives are really like this. They're dirty. They're covered in sin because we lie, we cheat, we steal, we're selfish. We disobey God all the time. In fact, we disobey God every day. It's a bit like having this paint and just slapping it on. Look at it. All these different sins. We tell fibs. Look at the back. It's absolutely disgusting. It's terrible. This life is not clean at all. This life is not pure. It's covered in dirt. It's covered in disobedience. This coat does not please God. This coat will not get you into heaven at all. In fact, the Bible tells us that if our lives are like this, we need to be punished. And we deserve to be punished because God is disappointed. God is angry with us if our lives look like this. So we have a double problem. Firstly, our lives should look like this to please God, but they don't. They look like this. And the second problem that we have is because our lives look like this, we deserve to be punished by God. So this is where the good news comes in. God is angry with us because of our sin, and we need a perfect life. So God sent Jesus. Jesus is God, but he became a man. He was a man, but he was God, and together he became the God-man. He was born as a baby in Bethlehem, and he grew up. But he never ever sinned, or cheated, or told a lie, or was disobedient to his mum or dad. Jesus lived the perfect life. His life was completely pure. It was completely perfect. So now the most remarkable thing happens. This perfect person, Jesus, takes my horrible, disgusting life, which is full of sin. And do you know what he does? He takes it on himself. And he takes the punishment for my sin on himself. So God in heaven looks down on Jesus and he sees Jesus covered in all my sin. And God punishes him on the cross. He takes all my blame. He takes all my punishment on himself. So Jesus deals with my first problem. He deals with my problem of sin. But can you remember there was a second problem? Can you remember what it was? I still can't get into heaven because I haven't got a perfect life. So then the second most amazing thing happens. Not only does Jesus take all my sin on him, but he gives me something in return. Look at this. Jesus gives me his perfect life. So that when God in heaven looks at me, he sees me as perfect. God in heaven, who is the judge, looks down and he's about to make a statement. Ready for it? He looks at me and he says, all your punishment, all your badness has been dealt with because it's been taken by Jesus. Sorted. And then he looks at my life and he says, you're completely perfect. You're completely clean. And he says, you are justified. In other words, I look at you and you are now innocent. You are now perfect. He looks at me, justified, never ever sinned, and that I had lived a perfectly pure life. Wow, now that is amazing. Now when God says I'm justified, I don't deserve it, do I? In fact, I deserve the opposite. I deserve to be punished for that horrible, sinful life. I don't deserve God's goodness to be put on top of me. I don't deserve that at all. It's all of God's goodness. It's all of God's kindness. It's all of his love. So when we say that we're undeserving, when we say that God treats us in a way that we don't deserve, we call that grace. It's amazing grace. So when someone is justified by grace, it means that God considers them to be as perfect as Jesus. They don't deserve it, but that's what he says. It's absolutely amazing. A person or animal that moves from one place to another. That's right. That's what migration means. So some birds, when it gets really cold, they migrate to a hotter country. Now, would you like to migrate?
No,
You wouldn't. Why not?
I would really miss you.
Oh, because you'll miss me. Oh, thanks, Pete. I'll miss you too. Never mind. I've got something to help you when it gets cold. You can borrow my scarf. How about that, Pete? That'll keep you nice and warm in winter. We want you to stay with us here in Wales. Say bye-bye to the children, Pete.
Bye bye, children.
Bye-bye, everyone.